The next thing I want to talk about is the so-called overnight success of Michael Dapaah, aka Big Shaq. I've heard so many people talking about this kind of overnight success of Michael Dapaah, aka Big Shaq. I just feel like it's just rude and disrespectful to call him an overnight success. I feel so many people that get like labeled with that term, overnight success. I just feel like it's really rude. One, because most people call someone an overnight success because they only found out about them yesterday, which doesn't really mean that they're overnight success. You know, been in a barbershop, we've been talking about it a lot since the song Mine's Not Hot came out, since he done the Fire in the Booth with Charlie Sloth. And loads of people, some people are feeling like what he's done is a mockery, but we're not talking about that today. Yeah, but we're not talking about, that's not that topic we're not talking about today, but it's just the other side of things of when it's like the overnight success. My opinion on it is, and my perspective on it is, first of all, you're not an overnight success. Why? Because have you seen all the work he put in prior to that Fire in the Booth? Prior to that Fire in the Booth, first of all, he had about 250,000 to 300,000 followers on Instagram. So it wasn't overnight that you became successful. You had a big following. You had your YouTube channel. I'm not sure how many hits you were getting, but I know you're getting a lot of hits on the sketches you were putting out there. Yeah, I was thinking there's about 100,000 plus on the sketches you're putting out there on YouTube. On his Instagram, he was getting, at the time before the Fire in the Booth, I swear I used to look at him and Mo the Comedian and they were getting similar numbers where it's like 100,000, maybe 150,000 like views on your videos. I just think when people say that, they ignore the process. Well, Michael Dapaah had to be someone to go on Fire in the Booth. Like Charlie Sloth is just not walking randomly down the street and talking about, right, you look interesting, let me put you on Fire in the Booth. He had to have a backlog of stuff that he was doing to put him in that position where Charlie Sloth would allow him to be on Fire in the Booth. And prior to that, him and Charlie Sloth had done other sketches when Big Shaq interrupted one of his interviews. So there was a build-up that actually was like, you know, yeah, that led to the actual Fire in the Booth first. And even prior to the interactions with him and Charlie Sloth, all the sketches he was doing online, he was getting loads of views. People were finding them funny, loads of comments, like people were loving them. He was always walking in his direction. So you could say he was taking one step every day. The Fire in the Booth might have taken him 4 steps forward, but that was the direction you were continuously going in from however many years ago. Like you just kind of leaped forward a couple steps more with this. But to call him an overnight success, I just think it's rude. Like people don't realize the work that goes into actually making someone a success. Even the idea of, let's just go like back in the days, Mr. Bobby had a #1 single. It's a gimmick, it's just a gimmick, this and that. But Mr. Blobby had to be someone relevant to go #1. A random man didn't put on a Mr. Blobby suit and then come out and do a song and then he went #1. It was all of the Mr. Blobby sketches you did prior to that that got us familiar with that character, that when you brought out a song now, you went #1 because everybody was already familiar with the backlog of stuff you had done. So I just feel like people look at almost the end result and just say it's easy, but they don't look at the process. They ignore the process and just want the result. And they're calling Michael Dapaah, or some people are calling him an overnight success because of ignorance, ignoring the process of all the years he's put in and looking at the result and just saying, oh, I could have done that, I could do that. Bob, you couldn't have done that because you weren't willing to work for 3 years prior to that, just putting out sketches when you were getting 10 views to when you're getting 100 views to working up to getting 1,000 views to 10,000 to 100,000. You weren't willing to put in that process because also it's not guaranteed to work, you know, and it's not guaranteed that you're going to get there. And that's why a lot of people, when they say they can do it, I don't believe you because you're not willing to fail. And if you're not willing to risk and fail, you're not willing to succeed. Because in everything, all our journeys and everything we're striving for, we're not guaranteed to get it. I know I'm not guaranteed to get all my goals. I'm not guaranteed to reach those goals which I'm going for. But I'm willing to put the time in and I'm willing to invest and I'm willing to risk it, which means the word risk means I'm willing to fail. If you're not willing to fail, you're not willing to succeed. Because if you're not willing to fail, it means that you're not willing to risk, you're not willing to do the things which might not go the way you want them to go. This is why we're in a culture where everybody believes they can just make it. And it's not that people can't make it, it's the reasons as to why they feel that they can make it. They feel that, you know, it's easy and stuff like that. And this is why there's probably so many people failing, because they don't realize the work that needs to go into being successful. That's just my view on the so-called overnight success of Michael Dapaah, aka Big Shaq.